Thanks, John. Well, phytofarming, I could have subtitled this quality as well as quantity. What I'm going to do is to spend a few minutes and cover why increasing the health content of fruit and vegetables is going to be good for you, it'll be good for the farmers, and it's good for the nation. First of all, just a few definitions you may not be familiar with. Phytonutrients, those are plant secondary metabolites. They're mainly produced as plant defence compounds, and there's thousands of these and more are being characterised every day. The structures, don't worry about it. The take-home message is these are the compounds that are responsible for the health effects. And although we're still working out how you get those health effects, some of them are well known. Antioxidants can aid your natural defences. Some of these turn on your anti-cancer defences. Some of them can boost the immune, and more particularly, there's quite a few that will actually moderate inflation, and that's very important for many of the diseases of ageing. More definitions. Phytonutrition is simply using those phytonutrients for health. Now, this is where health and food converge. And you've got that Go for 2 Fruit, 5 Vegetable campaign. You should all be familiar with that. That's out there, public health messages to counter the increasing rates of preventable diseases. But phytofarming itself, that is just specifically just growing crops to harvest their phytochemicals. Now, phytofarming with a pH has been around for thousands of years. Opium growing, there's 500 farmers in Tasmania and a few locals who freeload who are involved in that industry. But growing crops for phytonutrients, I'll give you some examples. I'll just go run through the phytofarming process. It starts with breeding, that's the key, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But it flows all the way through the value chain. You've got the horticulture, where you've got to maximise the nutrients, transport and processing to preserve them, and you've got the packaging to put it into some format that people will like to have, and you've got the health research where you actually prove it, and you've got to convince people that it's worth buying. I'll come back to that in a bit more detail. First of all, about 40 odd years ago, the USDA came out with a recommended diet, the food pyramid, and you should have all heard about this. It's got all those complex carbohydrates as the base of the diet and a few fruit and vegetables, less animal protein and almost no fats and free sugars at the top. But it hasn't been working. What's happened? What we've done is we've simply squashed the whole thing with fast foods. These are totally upsetting this, and the USDA has issued, last year they issued a new set of dietary guidelines, and although they're a little bit more complex, just some of those overarching concepts. One is maintain your calorie balance, energy in, energy out, simple. The other one there, focus on consuming nutrient-dense foods. Now, that's important. And there's a direct statement they've made. Make half your plate fruits and vegetables. That is good advice. How can phytofarming contribute? Well, this is the key slide of the presentation. The big one is about increased nutrient density. We can get 200 to 1,000% more health for a given weight through breeding. Now that's really, really significant. That means you can get 200 to 1,000% less energy intake for that same health content, and you also get the side benefits. These compounds also often give you more satiety, more taste. How do we do this? Well, it's breeding. It's conventional breeding. It's not genetic engineering. We do take some gene technologies like marker-assisted breeding to speed the process up. And why can we do it? If we tried to get 1,000% increase in grains, you just can't do that because the plant won't get enough energy. The key here is that phytonutrients are only 1 to 2% of that plant. So, and any one phytonutrient itself is only going to be a fraction of that. So we can raise them really high by 1,000% and not upset the plant itself. There's an example I've put up. But you know, if you go into the market, there's about 3 brands on the market, and buy a super sweet hybrid pineapple, it will have 6 times the vitamin C of any other pineapple on the market there. And that was by breeding. They did it accidentally. They're actually trying to breed out some disease issues. But it's an illustration of what can be done. Further phytofarming benefits. You increase the nutrient density, you increase the nutrient affordability. It's no good doing this if it costs a lot more and people can't take it in. You get a lot more health per dollar, and ultimately that's going to flow down to this problem of healthcare costs. And there's a direct statement out of one of the future reports: counter to long-term physical challenges of ageing and growing population, phytofarming, phytonutrients are one of the ways to address that. Some further benefits. Differentiation in a tight marketplace. You're adding value to horticulture. If you go into the supermarket and you've got 2 products, one of it might be delicious, might look good, and the other might be delicious, look good, cost 20% more, but promise double the health, what are you going to do? If you're a typical person, you'll buy the health insurance, even though it's just marginally more expensive. So this is a good way to get increased market return. There's a HAL sponsored project that's come out there, Vital Vegetables, in the illustration around raising the health content of broccoli and the Booster Broccoli range. Now, getting into some local examples that I'm involved with, and it's a HAL sponsored project. This is about a plum, Queen Garnet plum, and we're turning that into an anthocyanin factory. Now, anthocyanins are that red colour, it's the same red colour that's in wine, and there's a very high content, and we're trying to turn that plum into that drink. Why? Well, it's no good putting another plum out there, and this is data from the original breeding program. On the left you'll see all the conventional plums, and on the vertical axis a measure of the antioxidant content. And on the right you'll see some of the experimental varieties, and there was one standout selection. It had 3 times the value of antioxidants. And fortunately it's also proved to have the other properties in terms of yield and in terms of disease resistance, etc. So it has gone forward in a breeding program, but I don't want to give you the impression that this is easy. It's going to be 14 years from starting this project to getting that product on stream. That's a long time, and it's deep pockets and a lot of faith. But it's gone through the process. But what we've done is we've changed it from being a fresh product, putting a fresh product out into the marketplace. You can't support a health message for about 6 weeks of a fresh season. So turning it into from a fresh product into a processed product is part of the research. And fundamentally underneath that, they used to just breed trees, give them to growers for a fee. Here, it's a patented variety, and it's only licensed to growers, so that the production is tolled, and that toll on production will feed back to cover the investment in the R&D and producing the health products.